Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody from, I think, all over Europe. I'm delighted to be a host today in, I think, already the fifth session of our LevelUp webinars, where we talk around, let's say, all the things around our PowerCurve platform. The first sessions were about strategy management, best practices in originations, customer management, and collections. And now we are going to share with you, and especially I'm delighted that my colleague Peter Sorrenti, Head of Product Management EMEA for Decision Analytics, is going to give a view on the vision we have, what we are doing in product investment, product development, new capabilities, functionalities, also, of course, let's say, related to that, the roadmap. And so we have the full hour. If we can go to the next slide, Peter. Some housekeeping rules. You might have heard it already. We're going to record this session, so that's then also easy for you to have a look afterwards. By the way, also all the other sessions are recorded. So if you have interest, you will find after this session an email where you can go to the site where all those recorders can be found. If you have questions, please do. We expect a lot of questions. Just key them in the chat function. I will pick them up and will raise them to Peter to answer them if they are related to the subject he is currently, let's say, working on or speaking about. If not, we will bring it then back to a Q&A session at the end of this webinar. I promise you that we will end on time. So that is my role. But again, delighted to introduce to Peter. Peter, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Herman. And good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for your valuable time today. As Herman said, my name is Peter Sorrenti, and I head up the product management function for our decisioning software solutions for Experian in EMEA. And I'm delighted to be hosting this session about our PowerCurve vision and roadmap. So what's the purpose of this session? I mean, it's three key things. We want to share Experian's vision for its decisioning solutions based on its understanding of the market and the clients it serves. Secondly, we'd like to give you an insight into some of the priorities that Experian is focusing on to address current and future client needs. Finally, we're going to highlight some of the major aspects of Experian's decisioning solution roadmap. So one thing to say is that this is not a deep dive into functionality or the technical aspects of our solutions. We don't have enough time to do this. And I should say that given the time constraints, I can only cover a relatively small part of the overall roadmap. But as you will see, there is a considerable amount going on. There is an enormous amount of detail behind this, which wouldn't be practical to address here. But I do hope you get a good sense of the focus of our strategy and commitment for our ongoing investment in our solutions. And of course, we're available to go into more detail on an individual basis at another time. So by way of agenda, quickly, we're going to have a look at some of the market trends that are driving our approach and explicitly what our vision is for our decisioning software, and then look at some of the five major focus areas that is driving our strategy, and to expand on what it is that we're bringing to the market. So a market trend perspective, these are the findings of our most recent market assessments, supported by world-leading analysts, and form the foundation of our product development strategy. Hopefully there are no surprises here, since these are the themes that have been on the radar of many industries across the globe for quite some time. Even if there aren't any radically new topics here, it is good to have confirmed that these remain the dominant areas of interest. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, I said I'd focus on Experian's main priorities during this session. One of the most significant topics is the increasing prevalence of cloud-based software as a service. You'll all be familiar with the growth of AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud, and the fact that the business applications and use cases for which they're being deployed is very wide and continues to expand. Even highly regulated businesses such as financial services are increasingly seeing the benefits of adopting a SaaS model, for accessing services, as security and regulation create a credible framework within which risk can be confidently managed. During this session, I'll be showing you how Experian has been and will continue to invest in making its PowerCurve software available through software as a service. And this is really what it means for Experian and our customers. You can see here the various aspects which are really important to the provision of decisioning services in this environment. Being very easy to work with, having solutions which are easy to set up and run and maintain, having an end-to-end customer experience, not simply point solutions as part of the offering, and something that allows, in the bottom right-hand side here, the easy ingestion of any kind of data. And I'll expand on that in a lot more detail as we go on about how we're addressing these specific needs. So what is our vision? And to try and encapsulate in a as concise a way as possible, against the backdrop of the market trends and client needs, we're focusing on building on our strengths of decisioning software, data and analytics in an integrated way to help our clients make the best decisions they can. With 4 core principles in mind, you can see here. First, that it's important still to give you visibility and control of the trade-offs between risk appetite and your growth ambitions, wherever things stand in the macroeconomic cycle. We're also supremely focused on delivering an ever-improving digital customer experience to ensure you can onboard more good customers and retain them through the compelling way in which you engage with them. We're also conscious that the cost of ownership for sophisticated on-premise enterprise solutions such as ours is an ongoing challenge, and it's one of the things that's addressed by our investment into software as a service, which I'll expand on shortly. And finally, on the topic of cloud, this represents one of the number of opportunities for us to innovate by adding more integrated services, along with machine learning for advanced analytics and new data sources such as unstructured and real-time data streaming. So on the subject of cloud and software as a service, what is our model for delivering on it? So, it's basically, for the moment, the foundation of our cloud offering is built on AWS. So that provides the infrastructure as a service. For the moment, it's just AWS that's supported, but we're not limited by this in future. Our design is such that it's cloud provider agnostic. We then built what we call our Experian One platform on this. It's not client-facing in the main, but it's where the magic happens to enable our software applications to be run and maintained in the cloud in an agile and scalable way to cater for updates and changing volumes effortlessly and without disrupting service. It's on this platform we're enabling our existing PowerCurve applications to run, giving you capabilities such as the strategy management, business intelligence, workflow, and so on. So the use cases we've enabled on the cloud cover standalone decisioning and originations for the time being, or otherwise known as PowerCurve originations and PowerCurve strategy management. You'll notice that I refer to something here called CrossCore. You may or may not be familiar with this, but this is our enterprise level ID and fraud solution. That's been enabled on Experian One too. I won't be covering that in detail here, but it's an important part of our integrated decisioning offering. You can also see reference to PowerCurve collections and PowerCurve customer management. These aren't yet SaaS enabled, but this is on our roadmap. And finally, our offerings can be made available either as pre-configured multi-tenant solutions or configurable, something I'll expand on later to explain what that means. So how does this all come together with our data and analytics capabilities in the operating model? So our roadmap strategy is underpinned by a vision that sees decisioning, data and analytics capabilities come together in one truly integrated offering. Starting with data, our Ascend solution provides a SaaS environment for storing and linking numerous data sets, including our bureau data, client data, and other third-party data of almost any size. Now, Ascend I shan't be covering in detail here, but suffice to say it is a cloud-based service for data management and analytics and model building, which forms part of our overall ecosystem. And that's why I'm referring to it here, so that you can see how the future of our PowerCurve decisioning suite is very much embedded into data and analytics. So the approach here is that in the Ascend environment, you can in the data, which basically means it allows you to aggregate the data and join up disparate data sources based on particular keys such as name and address or national ID. And that then feeds into a workbench in Ascend that allows you to use modern modeling languages to create models and scores, which can then be ingested into PowerCurve, into the PowerCurve Studio for application and use in any of the areas you can see here, because the PowerCurve Studio underpins the decisioning service, the strategy management module in yellow you can see here, across the different use cases. And then also the decisioning can be run and simulated in our Ascend data lake, and also PowerCurve customer management can run in a data lake as well, where you have typically very large scales of volume of data, where it's optimal to run in a data lake environment. One of the things that we've created recently is the concept of a decision store. So this is a proprietary data store that captures all the decisions and the data around how a decision was made into one place. And ultimately, that helps you with the analysis of what learning you can get from the decisions that were made, and help then ultimately to retrain and optimize your models, thereby creating a virtuous loop into the whole decisioning ecosystem. So let's have a look at some of the, the 5 strategic focus areas now, and focusing particularly on strategy management evolution first. And this is very much at the center of our offering. The key market trends and client needs we've identified that drive our strategy are in 4 areas broadly. First, the need to have access to decisioning as a service that's quick to deploy and doesn't incur high costs to set up and run. Then there's the need to ensure regulatory compliance requirements are met, such as those for provisioning against a loan book, and a means of making strategy tools very easy to set up and to exploit the benefits of machine learning in optimizing them. Finally, our clients are making it clear that more instructive and insightful simulation capability is required to ensure rapid testing and eventual deployment into the production environment. The things that enable these include having a robust and auditable operational governance around decision environment, flexibility, and the prudent deployment of artificial intelligence into strategy design, and easy access to a wide range of data sources. So where is Experian now, and what are our plans to respond to those needs? Well, here you can see our current capability as of today. But what is most interesting for the topic of today is the roadmap components, and I'll draw out just a couple of these in particular on this slide. The first is the cross-portfolio integration category in the middle, where we call out the topic of explainability of machine learning models. This is a recurring and growing theme globally, where the regulators in particular are getting very explicit, prescriptive about the requirements to be able to demonstrate how decisions have been made. For machine learning, this isn't as straightforward as it is for a typical tree-based scorecard, for example, but we have a plan to address this, and already this has been made available in North America under patented designs in that market. But second, under the continuous product innovation category, you can see a reference to no-code design studio. So this is where we'll radically change the way in which Strategy Design Studio operates, offering an even more intuitive drag and drop UI where no coding or scripting is required. And in fact, it goes beyond this. It also includes AI assistance for suggesting enhancements to strategies that you are building. And I'll expand on that a little bit further later on. So here you see from an explainability perspective in the bottom left, just how that fits in with the overall plan across the cross-portfolio integration. In particular, how it fits in with our model ops approach to governing the management of models in decisioning. Something that's already deployed in part on PowerCurve strategy management now, but we'll continue to enhance that. And that's by including the explainability component for machine learning models, which, as I mentioned before, is becoming almost a mandated aspect within many markets. I should point out, actually, PowerCurve already integrates to data and other systems, of course, but this is shown here in the context of a more standardized approach built on our Experian One cloud platform. And you can see again reference here to Ascend, which is our big data ecosystem for data management and model building and analytics, but also how it fits in with data and other products and your own client ecosystems. So the next component around where we're going is around AI augmentation of strategy design. I mentioned that just a moment ago. And just expanding on this a little further, I mean, personally, I find this to be one of the most exciting, groundbreaking developments we're doing because it's applying machine learning to augment, not replace humans in the design of business strategies, and having a recommendation or number of recommendations to consider as part of the design process has huge potential to make it more efficient and accurate in the outcomes being generated. And this is one of the more novel applications of AI within the decisioning ecosystem that we are building. I'm very excited to see the evolution of that and its availability to our clients going forward. From a simulation perspective, before moving on to their next strategic focus area, now here's a quick look at what we're planning from that aspect. In fact, this isn't just about providing better visuals, you know, when comparing the performance of a champion challenger scenario, for example. It's much more than that, as you can see. Not only are we looking to create a framework to automate the testing of strategies, including against very large data sets, but also real-time decision performance monitoring with notification and alerting capability for significant decisioning key performance indicators. And these are things which will be adjustable and variable by you as a client to say, you know, what are my key performance indicators? What form should the alerting take? What channels should I be notified, and so on. So this is a significant step forward in how we're enabling you as our clients to manage, monitor, and respond to changes in strategy performance, whether that be through perhaps some kind of fault in the coding for the strategy that you've put in, or maybe underlying changes in the data that you're receiving, and that's a very important part of, you know, adapting to changing circumstances. Okay, so moving on now to the next focus area is around data integration. I mean, this is a very large topic. So, you know, the decisions that you make are only as good as the information that you feed into the strategies that you've designed. So the more data, the more better quality data, the different types of data you can access all inform those decisions to be more accurate and timely and relevant. So let's just take a look a bit further about you know, the focus we're putting on data integration. There's quite a lot of text here. Oh, hello. Was there?
This is Herman. Hi, Peter. Before we go to the next section, a question from the audience, because also in our markets, explainability and fairness of models is becoming very, very important indeed, as you pointed out. You said also it's already something that's available in North America.
Yeah.
Solution for that.
Yes. So we have created a patented approach to explainability in North America. It's not integrated into PowerCurve as a globally available solution. So it was done as a research and development project, a proof of concept, and we have run some examples with clients to prove the concept, and it's therefore informed the submission of the patents into the North America Patent Office. So that's going to be informing the global PowerCurve solution that we'll build.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, if there's some interest, reach out to us, then we can have offline discussions. Thank you, Peter. You can continue.
Of course, thank you for the question. Yes, so coming back to this topic of the data integration, you know, for the context about our plans in this respect, it's helpful to surface some of the main circumstances surrounding the business and technology world. I've already spoken about the increasing prevalence of cloud and its adoption across the globe and many different industries and verticals. And this is driving efficiencies in storage, access and processing of data. It's also really apparent that the thrust to adopt AI modeling as part of automated decision making is continuing, helping drive faster time to market for products and adaptation to changes in the market. There's an increasing rise in the availability of alternative data from sources that haven't traditionally been considered in the mix for customer acquisition and customer management, such as social media data, and I'll expand on that in a moment. And finally, access to real-time data is becoming easier, more widespread, and more data sources being made available. And that allows decisions to be made that reflect the most up-to-date customer situation and behaviors. So, you know, what does this actually mean for Experian and for our clients? With that in mind, let's look at some of the main challenges we find our clients are facing in this respect and what our response is in our roadmap. So one of the top requirements was to be able to integrate a new data source into the decisioning environment as quickly as possible, in a matter of days at most, to be able to respond to market changes quickly and take advantage of new data to enhance decisioning strategies. This leads almost naturally to, you know, an explicit need we've heard from clients to be able to manage changes to their data integration themselves without intervention from a third party, such as Experian, and ideally without their own IT teams getting involved. We also hear, you know, very clear reference to the need to be able to access non-traditional data sources to enhance the view of the customer. Essentially anything within permissible uses that can improve the accuracy and speed of decisions. As I mentioned on the previous slide, it's clear that the adoption of machine learning models is seen as an important to help segment and categorize customers to a suitable level of granularity, and then drives them down the most appropriate decision path. And finally, the term hyper-personalization has been used to encapsulate and express the need to finesse customer decisions as far as possible using customer context and most up-to-date information such as geolocation into the decision mix. So with that, you can see on the right-hand side that our response to these needs is very clear. We're already on the journey, in fact, to creating a low-code data platform, which will radically transform how we enable you to more easily ingest and manage data into the decisioning environment. We're also going to be enabling access to streaming real-time data, and I'm going to cover this in a little more detail now. So when I talk about low-code data platform, what I mean is that we're presenting our business and analyst users with a highly visual drag and drop interface with high levels of automation and guidance through the process. So think of it as perhaps a wizard approach in kind of the old terminology. So a guided approach to data integration. This will completely do away with the need for IT involvement or even Experian, putting you in control, giving you full independence on how you manage your data integration needs, and to do so at pace. You can get a flavor of how this will look in the screen snapshot here. Clearly, it's not, you can't really look at the detail, but it is an intuitive, graphically driven interface for connecting data sources, selecting your data components, and getting them in, prepared for ingestion in the decision environment. And by the way, we do have, but again, it's a question of time, we do have case studies and examples that show how this works, and we can demonstrate where we are on this, should you be interested in a separate conversation. So another aspect of the journey we're addressing is the managing of very large and complex data sets. The traditional data integration approach is not optimal for managing large data sets, especially hierarchical ones. That also changes frequently and can impact on processing efficiency. So we're creating a framework which allows you to easily navigate, aggregate and access such data sets, but only ingest and load the specific data elements that are relevant to your strategies, but at the same time making it very easy to adjust as required. One of the benefits of this, apart from your own efficiency in managing such data sets for use by your strategies, is that the end customer won't experience any adverse impact arising from any prolonged response times to such data sets, which might have arisen during the access to and processing of large, complex and dynamic data sets. So I'd mentioned that we're adding the ability to access real-time data, or otherwise referred to sometimes as streaming data. To expand briefly on what this means and the benefit it offers, I'll give you an example. Here a client wants to adjust a customer's credit limit based on some specific characteristics which are quite dynamic, that of location or change in customer profile. These data can be obtained from various near real-time sources such as an ATM transaction, where that occurs, the amount that was involved in that transaction, time of day, etc., or social media feeds. Again, the caveat here when we talk about alternative data is there has to be a clear mandate for permission to use that data, either individually by the customer or from a regulation perspective. But these are just examples of what is possible. But the principle is that we're going to enable you to easily integrate and use such streaming data sources in your strategies to better serve your customers and manage risk. So finally on this subject, let's have a quick look at something I find particularly interesting personally. X-analytics, is a term recently coined earlier this year, I think, by Gartner, and it refers to the ability to run any type of analytics on all of an organization's structured and unstructured data, no matter where or in what format that data resides. Experian will be enabling this to significantly expand the scope of what's possible and the use cases to which automated decisioning can be applied in a very efficient way. The example of what this can enable is maybe you think quite fanciful, but it's not. So the client need in the car insurance sector is to be able to process claims more efficiently and improve the customer experience. By using photos of the damaged car in the claim, it's possible to use machine learning models to evaluate the cost to repair it, and devise decision strategies to source estimates and pre-approvals without manual intervention. So this is not fanciful, it's real possibilities, and it's just an example of what we'll be enabling through this capability, so that you continually innovate both your existing products but further services beyond what you currently do. So let's move on to our next strategic focus area, and that's the topic of digital journeys. I don't think it's...
Sorry,
yes,
again a question. You talked about the concept of traditional data, which is clear. Non-traditional data, can you give some examples we bring to the market in EMEA? Because it's a fairly new concept for some of the attendees. Yes,
so non-traditional data covers a very wide expanse. So I'd mentioned, for example, social media data or ATM transactions, and there are all sorts of other kinds of data. However, specifically what Experian has available is an open banking service. And I'm hopeful that many of those of you in the European markets are aware of the open banking regulations, which allow and open up data from banking services to accredited providers, information service providers and processors. And Experian has a license as an information service provider to be able to capture data from banking environments, get the consent of the consumer to use that data within a particular context. So, for example, applying for credit, you can then interrogate that transactional data in the bank current account. We categorize that so that we can identify incoming income and spend, and categorize those categories into further subcategories. That ultimately allows us to have a much better view on the customer's situation, and specifically, as one very particular use case, is their affordability. So if you're looking at onboarding a customer, and let's say that they don't have a particularly large footprint on the credit bureau, and then maybe new to the market and new to spending, that relatively thin file can be augmented and also help provide a decision which you might otherwise have rejected using that open banking data, and that can be drawn in as part of the PowerCurve decisioning environment. It's one of those integrations we can provide. In this case, it's an experience service available in a number of markets, which we're also growing.
Okay.
I hope good question. And maybe Herman, you might have something else to add, because I know you have some experience in this.
Well, it's a good example of currently non-traditional data, and hopefully within some years it becomes traditional data if open banking is going to fly. Yeah. Well, another offering is Web Data Insight, where more or less we scrape the internet, especially for small, medium enterprises, which gives also an uplift in your risk assessment, improvement of your internal scorecard. So if you have some interest on that one, please reach out. But these are very good examples, Peter, of non-traditional data. Thank you very much. Let's continue.
Thank you for the question. So back to the topic of the digital journeys. I don't think it's contentious to say that the global pandemic has accelerated a shift towards online like we'd never anticipated. People who are already online are now using it for more services, but we're also seeing those who are new to the online world forced to adopt such services due to physical lockdown. So with this comes an increased demand for expanded and improved digital experience when online. And the need is for this to be done quickly in a way that is easily accessible and adaptable by our clients. So our response to this is much the same as for the data integration topic. We're introducing a low-code platform that allows us, and ultimately you, our clients, in the future, to quickly develop compelling online experiences for customers. The use cases for this are wide and varied, but include application capture for onboarding new customers, to customer self-service in collections, for example. So from the customer acquisition perspective, here's just a little flavor of what's achievable here. We can offer a device-independent responsive front end for application capture that includes ID verification and fraud prevention, which I alluded to before in reference to the CrossCore platform at the very beginning of this session. We can actually integrate those services as a part of this front-end experience. But we can also have digital signature capture, which is all part of the digital experience, and it will lead ultimately to a better customer experience, faster onboarding, and reduced acquisition costs. So we're also applying this sort of no-code approach for designing front ends into our client-facing environment. In the coming months, we'll be launching a newly designed case management tool for guided underwriting for PowerCurve originations during customer acquisition. This will be a step change in user experience, and it will be far more contemporary in look and feel, and greatly improve the efficiency of your client operations and give greater insights into the performance of the underwriting function. It will include the integration of an AI-driven virtual assistant to help the underwriter manage some of the more repetitive tasks involved. And speaking of virtual assistants, we've developed a cloud-based white-labeled solution that uses AI and natural language interaction to engage with customers over digital channels. It's applicable for many different use cases, including the one I just mentioned around case management for the back office staff, but also during onboarding to help answer customer questions and to provide support and guidance during self-service collections activities. It's a great tool to efficiently manage customer engagement at any time, any place, without human intervention, although the experience is one that feels like an agent is actually involved during the interaction. Now, this has been launched in our Asia Pacific region, not currently available in EMEA, but it is on our roadmap to launch in the future. And if you'd like to find out more about this, we can provide a demonstration and discuss what your interest is perhaps in being an early adopter of this in the region. So moving on then to our next strategic focus is effectively the evolution of our cloud solution. So I've given you a little bit of an insight into how we position and architect at a very high level our cloud offering, which is on Experian One. But it's important to talk actually more about how this is presented to you as our clients. It's all well and good having the cloud enablement, but what does it actually mean? And it affords us an opportunity to position our solutions in a way that's more meaningful to our client needs. So this is referring back to the kind of the architectural diagram or pseudo-architectural diagram I showed earlier. So we have this concept of multi-tenant pre-configured solutions, a single tenant configurable, and then an architect solution, which I can't expand on at the moment, it's work in progress. But the first two I will go into a little more detail about what they actually mean. So there are actually three ways in which we present our offerings here. So from a pre-configured perspective on the left, this is typically suited to clients with relatively straightforward needs, with limits on budget that preclude the use of our fully featured decisioning solutions. They don't actually need it all anyway, and they don't need all the flexibility of offers. And these solutions are available off the shelf. They're set up to address specific use cases, so there's no long delivery project involved. It's off, as I say, off the shelf. It's pre-integrated with standard data sources for the market, such as the bureau, and with standard strategies that have been optimized to meet market and use case conditions, and scorecards as well. Now, it doesn't mean that these pre-configured solutions are inflexible, far from it. There's a range of business parameters that clients can adjust to meet specific needs and to apply their specific policies, including scorecard cutoffs, age limits, and so on, whatever policies for that organization need to be applied. Now, for a configurable solution, this is for clients with far more advanced and sophisticated needs. They don't want to be constrained by a predefined solution, as I just mentioned. They want access to all the capability and the ability to configure more complex scenarios and data integrations. And these are, by the way, both these options are still hosted, as I indicated before, on our Experian One cloud enablement platform. So a software as a service, but hopefully you can see that we're addressing particular needs of our clients. And it's something that is, we've recognized for a while that we need to give clients an easy path to a more straightforward deployment than simply giving, the full PowerCurve product and configuring that, where sometimes the complexity is such that it really is like over-engineering what the client needs. So that's the reason we've kind of provided these two different offerings. And finally, on the right hand side, the self-serve option. This is very much in development, but we've recognized there are clients, usually our largest ones, who want an even higher degree of control over the solution and how it's hosted. And we've made allowances for that and are designing for that, so that it gives them more control. So, for example, in fact, I'll go on to the next slide, excuse me. So this shows the same view, pre-configured, configurable, and self-service options. And just by way of explaining more what that means. On the pre-configured option, you can see here, we configure the solution for many clients. We deploy it, we manage the logs and errors, and we do the monitoring ourselves. And the same is true for the configurable option, where these are client-specific solutions, not pre-configured, still on the same cloud deployment platform, Experian One. We still deploy the solution for the clients. We manage the logs and errors as part of the service and the monitoring of the service as well. In the full self-service model, clients actually have the ability to deploy solutions into the cloud as well as us, and they will be that will be offered on the basis of consultative services as well from Experian. We don't just leave clients on their own on this, but the client has the ability to have more control over solution deployment, and the anticipation is that clients will have more complex needs and want to grow their solution base far more broadly perhaps than those in the two other scenarios. And equally, having access to the logs and the errors and monitoring gives them the ability to control their service far more and have more transparency into it. So let's move on. So from a technology platform perspective, this is the underlying Experian One cloud enablement platform. I did say that it wasn't client facing. In the main, that's true. We shield you from all the infrastructure and all the varying enabling technologies that you would otherwise have to manage yourself in an on-premise environment. But there are aspects to the technology platform which do warrant an exposure in some respects to our clients, and typically probably more in the self-service instance, but this is showing the context again about what I mean. We're talking about Experian One here. So we want to open up the Experian One platform further to allow you to get closer to the workings of the solution. Specifically, we're going to provide tools to look at the details of the solutions that have been deployed, including logs and performance metrics. I mentioned that before in the self-service topic just a moment ago. Metrics looking at the environment and transaction processing, and then also the ability to upload and activate originations and strategy management solutions into the cloud environment. That's precisely what I'd mentioned in the previous slide. But building on that, from an identity management perspective, we've heard from clients that they often have their own solution that they prefer to adopt. So rather than using the solution that Experian has, we're going to enable different federated identity management providers to operate on Experian One, so the clients don't have to move away from their enterprise identity management tool just to access our services. And finally, we're going to expose and enhance the administrative tooling for clients to allow them to manage their products, user groups and roles, etc. So to give them more flexibility and control over their environments. So really, finally, in summary, the messages I'd like you to take away from this are, admittedly, a very quick summary view of some of what we're looking at, is that we really are seriously committed to investing significantly into our platform, and will continue to do so long into the future. We've made sure that we've consulted with analysts and our clients so that the roadmap we've constructed and will maintain is based on those market trends and what the client demand is. And finally, that the core component of our strategy is making our decisioning capability available, software as a service in the cloud, a direction which is very much in line with our overall Experian strategy to make our services not just decisioning, but others such as I mentioned, analytics, which is Ascend, and our other services are actually yet to be built and conceived, deployed in the cloud, so that we have a holistic view and a holistic consumption of services through the cloud. Okay, so I'm going to open up for any further questions that have appeared, Herman, if that's okay.
Thank you very much, Peter. Perfect on time. We already had two very good questions about explainability of models and the non-transactional, the non-traditional data. How much are we investing as a company globally? Is that something you can disclose, or is that interesting to share? In a certain bandwidth?
I think that's something that typically doesn't get shared. I'll be honest. I think it's a significant percentage of our revenue. So you know, if it's allowed to be shared, it'll appear in our company report. So I think I ought to be on the side of caution there. But it's certainly in the. I can say it's in the millions of dollars.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. You talked about self-service, where our clients that are using the platform have more easier access and have more control, better insight. But let's say for the end consumer, the end customer, self-service. You just showed AIVA as the artificial intelligence virtual agent. Is there more to come? Let's say on a capability level for end users.
Other than AIVA, for example.
Exactly. Yeah. Self-service and collections, for instance. Because,
it's not so well formulated yet, but for example, in the collections space, we haven't yet provided a solution that allows end customers to log into their accounts and self-administer, for example, making a payment through a portal. And that's something that we want to address. We know that will. I mean, the AIVA solution complements that, but it's not the answer completely. So having a portal that you can direct customers to at any time allows them to go and see the state of their account, whether or not they're in, you know, distress or not. They can then make a payment arrangement, a promise to pay, or actually a part payment, all without contacting, you know, the contact center if desired. So that's one area that we are very mindful of and want to look at further. And you know, other such self-service initiatives are being considered, but nothing more that I probably want to share at the moment without being too speculative.
Yeah. Another question is that we are very strong also in fraud detection, fraud prevention. It was not really the fraud topic, part of the roadmap. Can you say a little bit more on fraud?
Fraud, yes. So maybe this is an opportunity, just Herman, between us and for our clients, is maybe we should set up a separate session on ID and fraud, because there's a similar depth of roadmap activity there, which I don't have so much detailed knowledge of. However, what I can say is that at the center of our ID and fraud capabilities is cross-call, which in simple terms is essentially an enterprise level gateway to multiple ID and fraud services, those which are provided by Experian. So I would include the application fraud tools, for example, but also third-party partners. So that would include those that provide biometrics validation, you know, facial recognition and so on, but also email validation and document validation. So those part services are already included in our fraud offering now, an ID offering. But from a roadmap perspective, we are planning many more such partners to add value to the cross-call platform. And the reason it's important is that we are not trying to be experts in those fields which are clearly expert domains. And, you know, acquisition of a company of that sort probably isn't appropriate. Let's partner with them. Let's connect them through our single platform, and then our clients can consume multiple services through one gateway. So that's our strategic intent. Hopefully that helps. And I think an ID fraud session separately, if clients are interested.
I think, yeah, for sure we'll put it on our agenda to come back with webinars on fraud and identity services. I also know in our market, I'm based in the Netherlands, we are going to organize a virtual roundtable or a roundtable, hopefully a physical one, to discuss the fraud challenges in our market and what we can do with data sharing, and of course decisioning embedded around that. I think top. Thanks very much, Peter. Perfectly within time. Just for your information, this was the 5th webinar of a series, which we are going to close next week, where we are going very much into the details around AI and machine learning, and yeah, the link with those two topics with our decisioning platform. So hopefully this is also for interest of you, the current audience, and please ensure that your colleagues within your organization will get the invitation if you think it's for interest of them. You will receive a link with where you can go back to the recording of this session and also the other session. And also, I kindly ask you to fill in a short survey for us to improve where needed. Well, rest me only thing to say is thank you very much. Thank you, Peter, again. And everybody have a great day, great week. Stay safe, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your time.